While Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is totally suitable for children, it has some truly great moments that older viewers can appreciate. Moments that likely swung right over the kiddies' heads. These are some of the things that only adults will notice in Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse feels like a movie that is fully aware of the fact that it's inspired by a comic book. The film begins with an introduction from Peter Parker. Well, a Peter Parker, as we later meet a couple different versions of him. If you pick up on the context clues, you can determine that the Peter from the beginning of the film is actually Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man from the original Sam Raimi trilogy. The film smartly displays animated versions of scenes from those movies, including Peter stopping the runaway train in 2004's Spider-Man 2 and even his weird dance from 2007's Spider-Man 3. Rumor has it that Sony actually even considered casting Maguire to voice this version of Parker before ultimately settling on Chris Pine. Beyond that, Peter goes on to brag that he's been featured on a slew of various merchandise, including a comic book, a cereal,
and a so-so popsicle. I mean, I've looked worse.
He also mentions that he has an excellent theme song, which fans of the early animated cartoon shows can certainly vouch for. While this surplus of Spidey stuff is sure to give older fans fits of nostalgia, you have to wonder how much of it went unnoticed by the younger generation. After Miles is bit by the radioactive spider, his body starts to change. He wakes up the next morning and notices that his pants are now too short because he grew in height. Seeking an explanation, he wonders if he's possibly going through puberty. Later, he finds himself noticeably sweating while trying to pull off Uncle Aaron's shoulder touch pickup move with Gwen. When she asks him straight up why he's so sweaty, he tells her,
"It's a puberty thing."
He continues to stick with this story throughout the scene, even when his newly acquired spider grip gets stuck in Gwen's hair, causing her to exclaim, "I don't think you know what puberty is." The scene is humorous to adults because they know that obviously puberty has nothing to do with gaining spider powers, and everything to do with the awkward teenager-ness that inspired Miles to try out Uncle Aaron's move in the first place. However, for a kid who hasn't gone through puberty, they might not fully grasp the outlandish nature of Miles' assessment. If only it truly did grant you superpowers. Better than acne and BO, right? You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to immediately figure out that in Into the Spider-Verse, Miles' Uncle Aaron was going to play an important role in the young hero's story. Fans of the comics knew that he was actually the Prowler, but even if you didn't know that going in, it became pretty obvious early on that good old Uncle Aaron had a few tricks up his sleeve. However, when you consider that this is a Spider-Man movie, the term uncle should be a red flag. Everyone knows that it took the death of his Uncle Ben for Peter Parker to realize that his actions have consequences and that he can't always save everyone.
Uncle Ben?
Here.
Over here, Uncle Ben.
For young Miles, it's the death of his Uncle Aaron. The parallel between the two characters is a brilliant facet of the film that is both mature and thought-provoking.
You're on your way. Just keep going. Just keep going.
Eagle-eyed audience members most likely picked up on a hearty portion of the various Easter eggs featured in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. In one of the film's many blink-and-you-miss-it moments, viewers get a peek at Miles' dad's phone contacts. Although Jefferson Davis is trying to call his brother Aaron, you can't help but notice another, more prominent name on the list: Steve Ditko. Marvel fanboys will recognize that as a nod to the late comic book artist who, along with Stan Lee, co-created Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. However, the subtle name-dropping doesn't stop there. In another scene, Miles takes out his phone to make a call, and the audience yet again gets a glimpse at his phone book. The most obvious attention grabbers are the names B. Bendis, alluding to Brian Michael Bendis, and Sarah Pichelli. This duo co-wrote Miles Morales' first series, 2011's Ultimate Comics Spider-Man. You probably only notice these subtle details if names like Ditko, Bendis, and Pichelli meant something to you, and for many now adult comic readers in the 90s and early 2000s, that was the case. When it's finally his turn to return to his own universe, John Mulaney's Peter Porker, aka Spider-Ham, gives Miles a touching farewell, humorously gifting him a massive wooden hammer.
I want you to have this. It'll fit in your pocket.
Before making the jump home. Before he ascends, he sadly declares,
"That's all, folks."
Prompting Peter B. Parker to ask if he was allowed to say that, quote, legally. The line is obviously a reference to the Looney Tunes character Porky Pig, owned by Warner Brothers, who you can assume has a trademark on the infamous phrase. By questioning the legality of using the line, Peter breaks the fourth wall to call the audience's attention to the cartoon pig that isn't Porky saying his famous line. It's a meta nod to a competitor's classic character, but its humor is probably lost on children since, well, they probably aren't all too familiar with the concept of copyright infringement. Into the Spider-Verse really starts to gain traction when Peter B. Parker enters the fold, a chubbier, more depressed Spider-Man than the one from Miles' universe. During his introductory scene, the audience learns that this more jaded, broken-down version of Peter ended things with the Mary Jane from his universe because, well,
She wanted kids and it scared me.
although it's presented in a humorous light, this arc of Peter learning that he can, in fact, become a good parent is present throughout the movie, for those clever enough to pick up on it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that the relationship between Peter and Miles is not unlike that of a father and son. Miles, the in-over-his-head apprentice, seeks guidance from Peter, the weary master who is so experienced that he almost can't help himself from giving advice. By the end of the movie, Peter gets to witness firsthand the effect his presence had on Miles' heroic growth, and it's a feeling that gives him immense pride. In the climactic final battle, Peter says,
I love you. I'm so proud of you. Do I want kids?
most parents in the audience surely understood Peter's weighty realization. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite films are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.